We're not like Republicans lights. We're not SJW lights. We're not Democrat lights. We're libertarians. We are trying to free human beings. We're trying to give them body autonomy.
Well, when I light that match, the LocoFoco netcast begins. My name is Timothy Virkala, and today we're going to talk with Dennis Pratt. Now, Dennis has been on the podcast twice before. We've concentrated on his adventures with Quora, where he was the top libertarian writer. Today, it's the Free State Project, New Hampshire. Here we come.
Hey, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while, but you've been busy, and I've been almost afraid to interrupt you.
I've missed you guys a lot. You know, I mean, I used to be with you guys every single day for almost 4 years. And, now I hardly ever get over to Quora. Every once in a while I go over and see who's posting and what they're doing. But, I don't have an account anymore, so I'm not really signed in. I can't comment. And then people send me messages and they go, what do you think about this? Or, I haven't seen your work lately. I can't respond to them. And wow. It's like I'm dead, like in Les Jeux sont faits. I'm a ghost, going through the rooms, and I can't actually interact with anyone.
Well, the last time you talked with me, you had been kicked off. I actually forget where you were, but you had been kicked off, and then the next week you were put back on. But it was in January of this year, I think, that you were kicked off permanently. Is that correct?
Right. So so I think we talked in 2020. We talked. I had, when I first talked to you, I was very positive about Quora, and we were talking about how to utilize Quora as a proselytizing tool and how great it was. And not soon thereafter, I'm wondering whether it was you, whether.
Well, I called you the top libertarian on Quora. That was the way I pitched it. And the next thing we knew, Quora was after you. I mean, it really was quick. I was almost astounded.
Yeah, so it was very quick thereafter that I was suspended for about a month. For about a month, I was suspended. And it was only through Herculean efforts that I got back on, contacting different people and having them contact people they know in Quora. You can't really talk to Quora. And we finally found somebody who knew somebody who was fairly high up, and they got me reinstated. But it was reinstated with basically a shadow ban. So thereafter, my phenomenal growth in terms of people viewing my stuff and upvotes and shares and things like that, it just stopped. It really stopped. People like you who are already following me could see my stuff, so I could still stay in touch with my old friends. But the main purpose of Quora for me, which was to introduce the ideas of ethics, self-ownership, to a whole new group of people, I wasn't doing that anymore. And so, from, I guess it was March, I got reinstated, or April. I kept going. I started getting really involved in the spaces. I was running the libertarian spaces, and those were going along very well. Then in January, after the attack on the Capitol, the quote unquote attack on the Capitol, about 3 days later, I was kicked off. They didn't send me anything. I just tried to log on, and I wasn't able to. So I sent them a message, and they said, after a day, they wrote me back. They said, well, thank you for your inquiry. We have searched and reviewed your case, and we've decided that your writings are just not useful. Now, their own algorithms had me as the #1 libertarian writer. My answers, even in cases when there were hundreds of answers, were always at the top. If not #1, then #2 or #3. You didn't have to scroll down far to find my answers to any particular question. So their algorithms belied their offered rationale for kicking me off. Also, I had stayed outside of a lot of these political battles. So that was why I was kind of caught off guard that they would come after me so hard. I was always kind to people who wrote to me. When people were kind of rude to me, I wouldn't engage them. I would just block them and move on, just because I wanted to keep kind of a calm and kind demeanor for the people whom I was really trying to reach. And I didn't talk really about politics as much as I talked about ethics. And how should we treat one another and what the implications of that at a more generic level. And so I was really surprised, and I thought, well, I might be able to fight this again, but after a month, what I might get is another shadow ban, and I'm not too sure that I want to do that. I spent a lot of time making sure that I could download all my stuff. Unlike a number of people who've been kicked off of Quora, I did not ask them to delete my stuff, because I wanted to be out there for people who might just happen to come by. And then I started looking around for something else I might do. And I had been working with the Free State Project on Pork Fest the last couple of years, helping them out in a fairly major way. They had wanted me to run it in 2020, the year of COVID. We were the only Freedom Festival. We were the only festival that actually went in the year of COVID. So we just basically said, forget you guys, nuts to you guys. And we went ahead and had our Porcupine Freedom Festival up here in New Hampshire. But I was coming out of radiation treatment for cancer, and I was thinking, this may be just too much for me. I'm just not going to do that. But then, they asked me again for 2021. I'm just kicked off of Quora, which frees up an enormous amount of time. And I kind of want to do something in real life. So I said, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. So I became they wanted to call me the producer or the organizer. And I said, no, call me a chef de village, which is, kind of the Club Med term for the guy who's in charge of the Club Med.
So it doesn't mean village cook, it means village chief.
Village chief, yeah. So I became the chef de village of PorcFest 2021, and had some real success there. Real success. It was so much fun because my background is actually in startups, in new product design, in marketing. I used to teach marketing to marketing managers and marketing directors in various operating companies, especially in the area of the design of new products. And so I just treated this like one of my classes. I did a whole bunch of segmentation, and then I did a bunch of specialization. My goal was the numbers for PorcFest were somewhere between 800 or 900 for the year of COVID. So that was the lowest year. But then we usually get 1,200, which was our typical amount. And we had reached 1,500 once. So my secret goal was to reach 1,500 and surpass it. So to have the most successful PorcFest ever. That was my goal. Well, let's just say that, well, first of all, I made all these changes, Timo.
So you actually had an influence on the direction.
Oh, yeah, I had
the look and feel.
I had total control, and let's just say that I went whole hog, and I made all these changes, and I got so much negative feedback for them. You're ruining PorcFest. We've never done it like this. How can you be doing this? This is totally wrong. You're upsetting this group or upsetting that group. I think I was almost going to be taken out by the end of February. So this happened mid-January, but by end of February, they were really sick of me because I wasn't, they're used to people taking it over and then just like doing the same old. And I was like, you don't really want me if you want someone to just be like a bureaucrat. I'm kind of more of an entrepreneur. But my February numbers came in the beginning of March, and I was at the typical numbers for end of May for number of people going and things like that. And by I think it was April or something like that, I had passed the 1,500 mark Pretty soon I got past 2,000. And then all of a sudden we were going, well, what is our capacity? We never thought we would actually reach a maximum capacity. And so I was like, well, we'll just make it 2,500 because the guy who runs the place, he has had 3,000 for 4th of July, but for an instantaneous time, not for a full week.
Right.
And this is a full week festival, which would test their water, it would test their sewage, would test all of their capacity. So I said, okay, 2,500. Well, we hit that by May. We were in May. We were basically sold out. So it was the first time ever sold out. Just to give you a sense of proportion, we were well over 2,500. Typically, we have about 100 events. I had over 700 events. 700 events. It was a lot of fun. People came out, just all these different groups. I had targeted the highest need liberty people. Usually they target kind of the Cato, Reason, DC Beltway types, and these guys aren't going to migrate for freedom. They're happy to debate 28% versus 32% taxation. Whereas I wanted people who were so outraged that they were being enslaved that they said, yes, I not only will be going to PorcFest, but afterwards I am seriously considering migrating to the Free State and helping create freedom there in the Free State. And so so this was like the most intense freedom group you could possibly imagine. It was absolutely great. There were a whole bunch of secessionists, a whole bunch of ANCAPs, a whole bunch of the Mises Caucus people came out just in droves. A whole bunch of these like Freedom Cell people and different groups that I had kind of said, these are really high need users. These are really high need users. These are really high need users. And these groups actually helped me get big names. So we had Tom Woods and we had Dave Smith and we had just so many people who came in for their group. I had spread the festival throughout the entire campground. So we had all these venues, small little venues. And my deal that I made to them is you bring in a big name, and yeah, sure, you could have them in your venue and serve 30 or 60 people, but I'll promote them on the big stage where if you can actually bring me 200, 300 people, we'll put them on the big stage and now everyone can access them. And so there was almost a competition for the people to who could bring in the bigger name. So we had it was just jam-packed with activities and fun. And of course, most of the best part of PorcFest is actually those one-on-one serendipitous interactions that we had. So what I did was I created all these like little lounges all throughout the campground. I didn't create it. I gave tools to the people to create those little lounges out there. And so we had a women's lounge where they would have like special women's drink and they would talk about women in a free society. And they had the Mises Lounge was the most popular place. But they had all these different lounges and different activities and so many great interactions. It was really good. We got a lot of people who went there and then if they didn't stay in New Hampshire and just say, okay, I'm here and I've moved, they went back and then they started bringing stuff back. So we've had a major influx of new movers, which is really what we want, right? We're essentially a separatist movement, and we're trying to congregate really hardcore liberty people in one area and make that as free as we can possibly make it.
So aside from Dave Smith and Tom Woods, who else was there sort of as a headliner? You brought in groups. So aside from the Mises Caucus people and the who are the ANCAPs? And what about the legacy groups? I mean, there must have been a lot of very hippie-ish kind of things going on there before, right?
Yeah, there was. I mean, we had everyone from kind of a drug hub, I'd call it. We also had a body freedom hub of nudists, and we had another hub that was all Christians and a full line of Christian programming. My favorite topic, which I couldn't get to, which was, is Jesus a libertarian? They had a debate about that. We had Gene Epstein, who does the Soho Forum, and we had debates throughout the whole week. and not just on the big stage, some big debates, but also throughout it kind of infected the entire campground. So people would just like find topics and try to get like these discussions. And of course, these discussions are very kind and open, and nobody's really trying to hurt each other. It's just kind of an Oxford style debate.
Well, libertarians are notoriously debate prone, and we like debating to some degree anyway, and we certainly disagree with each other in all sorts of things. I mean, because libertarianism isn't, I mean, you and I have a core conception of liberty. I mean, it's just a shared idea, but most of us then make compromises, right? I mean, because, some compromises are just necessary. And when you get in the compromise area, then you get a lot of debatable stuff. So, and then there are people who think libertarianism is socialism. So I don't know what to say about that.
Well, the hardest part is, given that we don't live in a free society, right? Given that we live in an authoritarian society with government in everything, how do you free up this area, given that that freeing up this area, there's going to be all these negative adverse consequences of freeing up this area because all these other areas are still kind of clamped down. I mean, if we could, we'd like to free up everything, or free everything up at the same time. But so if you look at what all the major debates are within libertarianism, they're all about how do we get from this authoritarian system to a shared vision of what a libertarian vision, a libertarian society is. So in a libertarian society, if you wanted Joe to come onto your property and work with you, move with you in something that you call work, that wouldn't be an issue. Doesn't matter whether Joe's from next door, doesn't matter if he's from the next town, doesn't matter if he's a halfway world around. It's your body, your association, Joe's body, Joe's association, your property. Boom. It's easy. Libertarian society, easy decision. You decide, you bring Joe over, Joe can't go and steal from these other people, right? He can't vote to steal from these people. There's all these other consequences of libertarianism, of respecting our bodies and respecting property, but you can invite them up. But now we have a system where the government is a government program that keeps these borders. So how do you get to welcoming immigrants? We have the real problem here in the Free State because it's bad here in America, and a lot of people who have poo-pooed us for years, Timo, about libertarianism is all that important. Body, owning your own body. Well, who's trying to control your body? And of course, we'd have to use something like drugs. Well, are you going to use drugs? No. I'm just saying, if you wanted to use drugs. Well, now we have like these mandates where pretty soon, I don't know where we're headed, but you could be forced to inject big pharma chemicals and biological agents into your body without your permission. And so now all of a sudden they're going, oh wait, so even body autonomy. But we've seen body freedom, we've seen labor freedom, we've seen association freedom, and we've seen property freedom come under extraordinary attack. But it's shocking for us here in America. They've been putting up with this so long in these other countries. So we actually have a lot of people in foreign countries who would like to be in the Free State, helping us build free states. And these people are not, when they come over, they're not putting up with any compromises. They're like, no, I did not move halfway around the world in order to put up with that bullshit again. They want freedom. They want to be free. So they're great people for the Free State Project, but we can't bring them in. This federal government stands in the way, and they have all these stupid programs. And the ones we get in usually are married to an American, or there's some sort of thing like that. And I tell you, they're some of my favorite Free Staters, just because they're so determined and they're so energetic. And they're kind of like, they're the guy who says, you don't know the gifts that you have here, and you don't know what you're losing and what it's going to look like. So I'm here to help you save that because I don't want to go back there. And so I love those guys. I wish I was just writing today, I wish we could find a better way of getting these people over here to help us build, because that's what we need. We need builders. We get a lot of people. I mean, in PorcFest, I was looking for builders, people who are really ready to roll up their sleeves. We get a lot of people who will like go, well, I have in my state, X law is better than you have in New Hampshire. So I'm not going to move until, that law is better in New Hampshire. And it's like, they don't quite understand that this is a project. We're looking for people to come here. And okay, so you think that that's an area that you want to work in? Great. That is now your portfolio. You go and create greater freedom in that area, right? And we have all these people who are doing that. They get very energized about trade requirements, in order to be able to labor, or they get very excited about. I'm doing a debate this month on marijuana, recreational marijuana, which is still kind of criminalized. It's decriminalized for low quantity use, but it's still ugly. It's still ugly. It's not where we would want to be if we actually believed in body autonomy and in labor autonomy and property autonomy. So we're all kind of looking at for various things and debating about them and things like that. So these people who are kind of like, well, you build liberty first and I'll come. They're not free staters. We need the people who go, I'm going to go and I'm going to help build that skyscraper. The people who come and they look and they go, well, this skyscraper, all I see is a hole in the ground and some foundation. That's not a good view.
Okay. So now what's the reaction of New Hampshire citizens who aren't free staters, who don't have free state in their souls? They have something else.
Well, we have, well, first of all, we chose New Hampshire because it is the live free or die state. So it has already a fairly libertarian ethos. So a lot of what we're doing is actually reaching out. So I created a community center. We have other community centers, Liberty community centers throughout the state. And we have events all the time there. We had an event on Wednesday night. We had a premiere of a new documentary on Wednesday night. Thursday night, we had kind of a party and after party while we were watching the football game. And then tonight we have an open mic night. Oh, last night we had a science fiction movie that we watched together that had a kind of a libertarian bent to it. And tonight,
well, now that you mentioned it, I have to know what the science fiction movie is.
Well, it was Firefly.
Well, oh, you mean Serenity?
Right. Well, it was actually, we've been watching the entire series together on Sci-Fi Fridays. Okay. So at Sci-Fi Fridays, we've watched the entire series. Last night was the last episode. And then we watched a documentary, kind of a making of documentary. And then next Friday will be Serenity. So
well, yes. I think the last episode was the best episode. Objects in Space is
Objects in Space.
Yeah. The best episode of Firefly.
Jubal Early.
Yes. The actor who played him is so good, and it was so well written. It was just an astounding thing.
So we reach out to people. We have people coming to the Shell. I called it the Shell, which stands for Seacoast, which is where I live on New Hampshire. Seacoast harbors every liberty lover. I have kind of an L type of thing going. I have another organization called Swell, which is Seacoast welcomes every liberty lover, which basically creates kind of a very welcoming community on the Seacoast. And so we have people coming from Maine. We had on Wednesday night, we had people, someone from Vermont. We had people from across the state. We had someone from Maine and someone from Boston.
Okay.
Who traveled up to our community center for that documentary. We have comedy nights, we have debates, we have we like the debate where I'm having the end of this month on recreational marijuana. We have comedy open mic, which we're doing that tonight. And as a matter of fact, there were some new movers whom I met on Thursday night. They just moved here. Where they moved from? I forget. Anyway, the whole family just moved there. And the daughter, the teen daughter, wanted to sing. She goes, well, it's an open mic. Can I sing? And I was thinking, oh, well, of course. So I said, yeah, sure. Turns out that they just want comedy. My request back to them was, hey, can she sing? And they said, is it funny?
Very good. So do people in New Hampshire know about the Free State Project?
Oh, yeah. Well, right now, we porcupines have a majority of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. We now control the majority of the Republican Party. The majority whip is a Free Stater. So a lot of the people came here, looked at, well, how do we actually, make changes? And there's a subset. It's not as large as you would think. A subset of movers who said, okay, I'm going to go into politics. And New Hampshire is great because they have the largest House of Representatives. So the smallest ratio of rep to their community. So if you actually go out and meet the people and talk to them about what your passions are, you're very likely to get elected, especially if you're in a kind of a Republican district, because they kind of vote Republican versus Democrat here. And so we've done very well there. We've changed so many laws. It's just incredible how many laws we've changed. But there's a lot of Free Staters who don't just do that. So they know about, especially the political authoritarians. They're very upset with us. The governor himself was actually recorded about a month ago talking about, going off about how, libertarians, we can't put up with them. They're not Republicans. And this got recorded and released, and we actually have the majority. So it's like, well, okay, what are you going to do here? So I'm actually part of the Libertarian Party here. And when I got here, I was so disappointed because, I thought, okay, I'm going to the free state and we have so many libertarians going there. And this is going to be like such a rabid, freedom-loving Libertarian Party. And they were so milquetoast. There's a lot of SJW stuff, a lot of DC Beltway stuff, a lot of, let's appear reasonable and all this type of stuff. And it was so boring. But there's a movement now for the Mises Caucus. Are you familiar with that, Timo?
Well, sure.
Yeah. And New Hampshire was actually the first place where the pragmatists were kicked out and the Mises Caucus went in. And the Mises Caucus didn't go in hard. I mean, we had the vast majority of the convention, but it was about half and half. We elected some people who were kind of old prags, and but they seemed like they were reasonable to work with, and we just wanted something nice. And then the National Libertarian Party was so outraged that the Mises Caucus had taken over. They tried to disaffiliate the New Hampshire LP, and we had this gigantic drama going on here, where they basically took all of our property. They took all the social media. They took our entire database of all of our members and stuff like that, and they had no authority to do so. They just did it kind of by fiat. They created a new group with new bylaws that required a loyalty oath, and I think you had to be a member in the new group for at least 2 years before you could vote or something like that. So the seasoning was just outrageous. But if you looked at it, how are they actually going to get the bylaws in if nobody can vote?
Well, this is a famous scandal in the libertarian movement. I mean, this was covered on many blogs and podcasts and that sort of thing.
This was just a gigantic scandal, and it's still ongoing. It's an embarrassment. to the Libertarian Party. And it makes me really sad. I'm a card-carrying Libertarian Party member since 1982. I have my card with me, 1982. And these people are going, oh, these are carpetbaggers. I'm going, no, we just want to talk about libertarianism. We're not like Republicans lights. We're not SJW lights. We're not Democrat lights. We're libertarians. We are trying to free human beings. We're trying to give them body autonomy. We're trying to allow them to move their body, even if we call it labor, how they choose. We're trying to allow them to associate how they want to, and to use the product of their labors how they choose. That's what we do. That is us. And all this other stuff, these anti-racism oaths and all this stuff, it's not us. That's not what we're about. We are anti-authoritarians, and we believe in self-ownership. That's our job. Everything else is a distraction. So they just don't understand that. And they think that, it's kind of, I've belonged to Cato for so long. My first dog, first Belgian Tavern, was named Cato. I've belonged to Reason Magazine for so long. And, and I have to tell you, I have never been so excited about libertarianism as I am with the Mises Caucus people and their bold messaging. We've got into a lot of trouble. The biggest trouble we got into was a tweet that said, end child labor laws. Now, I'm sorry, we're libertarians, we want to end child labor laws. My child, whom we homeschooled, was working on her own at age 10. And we broke numerous laws in order to allow her to work, because to us, that was kind of her education. And we found places where she could work and stuff like that. Well, of course, they trot out the pictures of kids in coal mines and all this type of stuff. And say, this is what they want. And it's like, no, that's not what we want. We want kids to be free to learn in various ways, including how we used to learn as tribes, where children worked with their adults and saw this is productive work. I understand how I might fit into society. I'm highly motivated, right? The government's idea of education is take them away from the community, take them away from all adults, put them in kind of this a kid eat kid environment, and have them work on toy problems that nobody gives a darn about. And then they're surprised that kids hate school and that they're bored shitless, right? I'm sorry to say.
And they grow up to be people who don't understand the world they're in.
That's right. That's right. And they don't understand how to learn, right? That was really important to me, was to teach Vivian how to learn. So, the way that you learn is you do something, you get motivated, you go, shoot, I really want to learn this. I want to learn about that. I want to learn about this, right? And now you have a direction, as opposed to learning stuff that you don't give a darn about, and you're only learning it for a test, and you'll never use it again. So we got into trouble for a large number of tweets. And
what kind of trouble? I mean, how do you get in trouble for a tweet? I mean, I understand people on Twitter don't like you, but I mean, that happens, right? So what's the trouble?
Well, Gary Johnson saying, we libertarians don't believe this, and the Libertarian Party is now working, the national, which is much more heavily controlled now by the pragmatists. They've actually gotten rid of the more radical elements through chicanery since this has all happened. So they've kicked out people whom I think are good. But they're looking at now some sort of resolution that if you do anything on social media, whether it's official or your personal social media, that might cause people not to join the Libertarian Party, that might hurt a candidate's prospects, that might affect a donor not donating or not donating as much. So this is a gigantic low threshold that they can then kick you out of the Libertarian Party. And it's like, okay, so only the most milquetoast communications are possible. We can't say anything bold. And I'm sorry, libertarianism is a bold movement. We're marching into 6,000 years of slavery to our rulers and saying, no, this is wrong, and we want to change it. So that's a bold statement when the slaves get up and say, no, that's bold. And they're going, oh, no, we can't do that. It might upset somebody.
Yeah, it's absurd in one sense because libertarianism is different from everybody else. So if you say libertarian things, you are going to discourage those people who are violently opposed to you. And if that's your metric, then you can't really be anything. It's a dumb move on any basis. It also doesn't make any sense if you understand marketing, as you certainly do. It's against the idea of a USP. I mean, the unique selling proposition of libertarianism is liberty, and they're saying, oh, but that'll upset the non-libertarians and the anti-libertarians. Well, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually on the political committee here, and you're exactly right. You know, if we were to apply good marketing strategy here, we would be going so hard after the authoritarian Republicans and authoritarian Democrats, and just allow them to collapse and cannibalize each other. And we say, and there is an alternative here. There is a major alternative, and we would make that distinction so clear and so obvious. And part of it for me is actually awakening a lot of these New Hampshire libertarians who are libertarian. You know, they think libertarian. They don't identify as libertarian. They identify as New Hampshireites, but they are liberty oriented. Now we have a lot of people who aren't. Most of them came from New York or Massachusetts or stuff like that. You know, they escaped the high taxes and the oppression there. They moved to New Hampshire, and then of course they say, well, New Hampshire would be a little bit better if we just increase the taxes a little bit, or we just increase these regulations more, or why don't we have guns in New Hampshire? You know, so they don't understand why New Hampshire is so great. They ignore what makes New Hampshire great. They come with their authoritarian ideas. They're escaping the effects of authoritarianism, but they bring their authoritarian ideas, and now they want to implement. And these people are so upset with us. They have a whole organization that's basically against us. You know, how many other states have organizations that are against them, that have paid advertisements against them? And frankly, we're kind of winning. I'm almost half in jest, but maybe half seriously. I'm thinking about creating a new service. So we have the Free State Project, which is, all the Free State Project is telling libertarians, stop beating your head against the wall. Most of the people you talk to will never turn libertarian. You will never have a libertarian society. Instead, pick up and move over here and help us build a libertarian society with a whole bunch of libertarians who share that basic ethic that they will not use violence against you. Okay, so that's all the messages for Free State Project. But I think that we needed something else called the Slave State Project, which says, all you New Hampshire people who are here who can't stand these changes, this slide into liberty that's going on, this freeing up of human beings. Well, you pick whichever state you want that is going in the right authoritarian direction. You don't like guns. Well, here's all the states that outlaw guns all together. And we will find a libertarian in that state, and we're going to do a wife swap. Okay, so we'll swap you guys. We'll pay for. We'll help you pack. We'll help you load up the truck. You can actually stay in the libertarian's house while he sells it. While we sell it for him, and he can stay in your house while we sell it for you. But you can have exactly the government. You have 49 choices, authoritarian choices out there, and you can pick and choose whichever one you want. We'll help you go there, and we'll bring someone here who actually wants liberty. So it's I call it state swap, or the slave state project. But we need something else for all these people, because they're going, well, look, I'm living here. I really wanted to turn this into Massachusetts, except not that much. Or I really wanted to turn it into New York City, but not that much. And you're spoiling my plans. But we have We're surrounded by authoritarian states, and it's a 2-hour ride. We can get you anywhere you want.
I mean, isn't Vermont the logical place to go? I mean, Vermont seems much more.
I mean, the libertarians in Vermont, they're so sweet. They see what we're doing in New Hampshire, go, we're going to do this too. And they don't understand that we're trying to congregate people. I was listening to a guy today, and he was making the argument, we should have a free state project in every state.
That's what the Libertarian Party would be, but it's of course wildly ineffective.
Right. Well, you can't get that mass number of people. So we have a lot of people. So we vote really, for liberty. We put up liberty candidates. We have liberty community centers. We have liberty agorism. We have liberty crypto. So, I mean, this is the heaviest use of crypto in the entire world is here in New Hampshire. So you can go to restaurants and use crypto and make exchanges here. We use gold backs. I don't know if you've seen this. This is a thin layer of gold in plastic. So it's actually a set amount of gold that you can trade. And so the price of it is whatever the spot price is of gold plus a little bit extra for the manufacturing price. So anyway, it's a way of trading gold. So we use those. We have so many different alternative currencies, and it's so kind of cool. We have lots of homeschoolers, lots of people homeschooling and finding different ways of homeschooling. We just passed this law, which is absolutely great, where unfortunately there's an income threshold. You have to be no more than 3 times the poverty level to be able to take advantage of this new program. But you can basically take money that's coming out of your taxes and take it to any school of your choice, including homeschool, and including parochial schools. So, this whole idea of, well, geez, I have a voucher. It's not a voucher to an authorized, government authorized, union authorized school. It's a voucher to a school that you want for your child because you care most about your child, and you want the best for your child. So we're doing so many great things here, and it's so exciting. It's so much fun. I go to there's multiple events every day. It's so hard to keep up, and I go to probably 4 events, 5 events a week. I just can't go to as many as I'd like to. But you go there and you're talking to people, and this person's doing this and this person's doing that, and it's very exciting. I think I told you in one of the previous times that we've talked that New Hampshire at one time, when we first moved here, had the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and the number 5 top libertarian writers on Quora. At one point, we actually owned, they were all in New Hampshire. So it's like this hotbed of liberty. And there's so much resonance that goes on. And it's such a relief. That's the biggest thing, I think, is that I don't really talk to authoritarians that much. Every once in a while I bump into one and stuff like that. We just took a schooner trip, Carol and I. We went up to Maine. But you go into Maine, and as soon as I go into the border, I past the border, I feel that oppression. Everyone's wearing masks, and everyone's like looking, and it's even Maine, which really should be liberty oriented. But we got on the schooner, and the people on the schooner were from a number of different states. They all were authoritarians except for us, and they would talk about like these terrible things that would normally really get me upset. About doing terrible, evil, wicked things to people through the state because they want X. A lot of it was about vaccinations and forced vaccinations and taking away government services if you disagree and all this type of stuff. And normally I get really upset, but I'm part of this Free State Project and part of this separatist movement. It's kind of like, okay, so you guys are cannibalizing each other, really disgusting guys. And I don't have to actually live in your tribe anymore. I'm over here in a tribe where we don't cannibalize each other, and we can just kind of look at you like kind of this anthropology type of thing. Go, ooh, that's really creepy. And I didn't feel an onus to disabuse them. Normally, I would have got into like this big argument, and Kara would be kicking me, and there'd be bad feelings and stuff like that. And I just walked away because I knew that I would be soon coming back to the Free State. I knew I'd be back in an embrace of thousands of libertarians, all doing liberty types of things. And I was just going, oh my God, God bless you guys. But I was like, I was watching a different tribe, a tribe doing not good things to each other. And it's such a relief. I mean, I was fairly successful on Quora in terms of proselytizing, but it was still a hard slog. And the Free State Project is essentially saying, look, that's hard to do. With the Milgram experiment, we know that 2/3 of regular people across cultures, across ages, will kill somebody if there's a man in a lab coat telling them to. So that's without any legitimacy, right? That's without the legitimacy of government. And, oh, well, we democratically elected him. That's without the vilification of the person. The person who killed him actually had a good feeling about the person that they were electrocuting and causing them to have a heart attack. And listening to his screams over the speaker until he went silent, and they kept on electrocuting the man. So without that, so if you think of that, 2/3 is like the base level. If you have a lab coat, if you have the minimal look of authority, they will follow and obey. You add in legitimacy, you add in vilification, right? Like they're doing now with all this COVID stuff. And we get into the 98% type of people who will kill people. They will kill you. At PorcFest, there's this thing called Soapbox Idol. And you're given 3 minutes to rant about whatever you want. And I ranted about this idea that a lot of people have who won't come to the Free State Project because they don't want to leave their friends and family. And my argument was they're not your fucking friends. Because a friend has to, at the base level, be unwilling to have you killed for a disagreement over how you use your body. They're not your friends. They're the people who went and sharpened their knives for Tutsis. They're the people who turned in Anne Frank. Those are not your friends. Those are not your friends. They're the people who burned witches and sat around and burned witches because they were scared. So coming back here and being amongst people who believe in their core that each human being is sovereign in their body, and they will not initiate violence against other people, and they will help other people protect themselves. It's just such a relief.
So I have to ask the question that all those murderous, rage-filled COVIDians would ask. With all these libertarians not masked in New Hampshire, they must be dying like flies.
Well, I wrote a few articles on COVID before I was kicked off, and a lot of the points I was making are the things that we're still making now, trying to make about the fabrications that are going on with COVID. But yeah, so Carol and I and most of the libertarians here, we had PorcFest. We go out to events all the time. We're always unmasked. We've lived our lives normally over the last year and a half. Year and I guess a year and a half now. Both Carol and I got COVID. And I have cancer, so I was a little bit worried about it. But for me, I never really got the high fever. I got a little bit of aches and stuff like that. I was really good. As soon as I felt a little bit odd, I got the test. But now I have like super immunity. This thing that where if you actually get your immunity through having had the COVID, you're much more resilient. What, 13 times more resilient to variants than the people who get the forced injections, the big pharma injections, because it's just not as resilient as against this. So we have a lot of people. I think we have a lot of natural immunity here, and it's a fairly resilient group. We do have people who are libertarians and are extremely shelter in place. We have libertarians who've gone ahead and gotten their injections, right? And as libertarians, that is your decision. We have libertarians who did not come out to all of our events, but and they didn't come out until they were fully vaccinated. And we even have some libertarians still to this day who won't go to large events because they're concerned. But libertarianism, it's your body. You choose what goes inside of it. You choose how to use it. It's the property owner's property. They choose whom they can have on it and whom they don't want to have on it. And you make your decision kind of that way. So this whole idea that's happening in the authoritarian countries, where it's authoritarian states, where it's like, okay, I'm choosing to get the injection, so therefore you have to get the injection. It's just so strange to us. I don't want anyone without the injection on my property, so therefore you can't have anyone without the injection on your property.
Yeah.
It's this narcissistic type of thing, which is very strange. But yeah, no, we haven't had massive deaths. We haven't had floods out in the hospitals. We have an older population too. I mean, I'm fairly old. I have cancer, but unless you really have severe respiratory problems, I mean, I would have been a lot more careful. I was actually pretty careful early on, but then I made the decision that I don't know how much time I have, and I didn't want to live my life like that. Plus, I'm an extrovert, and it's so funny to me, these introverts who are now treating it like it's their virtue of staying away from people and staying. It's like, no, you don't understand. You don't like people. Okay, great. Don't be around them. I die without people. You may as well kill me. So we all have to make our own decisions around that. And it's been pretty interesting. There's been here in the community, there's been fairly intense debates around it too, especially around the messaging. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but the Libertarian Party was really milquetoast on their COVID mandatory vaccine.
Did they finally come up with a position?
Yeah, they just this week they came up with a halfway decent position. But up until then, during the run-up to all of this, they were just talking about we stand with Black Lives Matter and all this type of stuff, which is like had nothing to do with libertarianism. It was just virtue signaling to people that they thought might give them the time of day, but will never give them the time of day because they're authoritarian.
The last time we had an interaction on Quora to any real extent was over the issue of Libertarian Party messaging regarding Black Lives Matter. And we basically agree with each other. But it is very strange. I didn't vote for Jorgensen. I wouldn't vote for her this time simply because I didn't think that she gave out a message that was worth voting for.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter and not saying anything against the COVIDian pandemic panic. That was a killer for me because this is that summer leading up to the election, it was Black Lives Matter and riots, and it was the COVID panic. And to me, those are the two big issues, and they're both very threatening to even civilization. And the Libertarian Party basically said nothing of interest, or actually said something against what I thought was true.
Yeah, it was also the wholesale destruction of small businesses in this country. Small businesses that used to be the backbone. It was a wholesale destruction of small businesses and a handout to big corp.
Yeah.
It was a destruction of our currency. I mean, those trillions of dollars that have been going in. I'm so surprised that people just are ignoring what's going to happen here. Yes, it is a dilution of our money. We've been taxed without representation, but it's also an undermining of this fiat currency, which I don't want to be a collapsitarian, but I'm glad I'm in New Hampshire. Yeah,
well, I don't like being a collapsitarian, but I think collapse is inevitable. So you have to prepare for the collapse. I mean, it's kind of odd, this idea of collapsitarianism. It's a funny term. But when I came into the libertarian movement, it was 1980. And at that time, there were collapsitarians. I mean, Doug Casey and many others were saying that we were going into hyperinflation. And I just had begun a crash course in economics. Because I wouldn't become a libertarian until I learned economics. That was my promise to myself. I wasn't going to commit to anything until I learned something. And I thought they misunderstood the nature of the Fed. And I thought it was certain that the Fed was not going to allow hyperinflation, because you'd have to be stupid to allow that. However, 30 years.
This is 1980?
What?
Wait, because in 78 and 79, remember how much inflation we had?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I didn't believe it was going to carry on. I actually believed in 1980 that it was not going to continue. And I basically went into the libertarian movement kind of mocking the collapsitarians. But over time, you could only have a $30 trillion and mounting debt so long, and then something happens, right? When there's a $1 trillion debt, or not even that in the 70s, and you have inflation, hyperinflation can be avoided, and they did avoid it, and Volcker did it, and it hurt, but we got through it. But now we'll see how this goes. But I don't see an easy outcome from what's coming.
Yeah. And we're seeing that in the Free State Project, where we have a lot of people fleeing. If they're not fleeing the vaccinations, they're fleeing for their kids. This whole masking of children and isolating children from human beings. I just think that this is terrible. There are kids out there who don't see neighbors' faces, who think that everyone who's there is a danger. I specifically did not teach my child, when we homeschooled, stranger danger. I actually taught the opposite, of finding allies. Did I ever tell you the story of what we would do?
I don't think you did. This seems new.
Yeah. So we would go to the train station in Boston, and I would sit down with her. I'd say, "Okay, you're in trouble. Whom do you approach for help?" And so she would look around. She'd go, "Okay, I approach that woman there." I say, "Why?" Well, she looks confident. She's her shoulders. So I taught her to basically look for people who were allies. When she was 10, I wouldn't allow her to turn 11 until she traveled from Boston down to West Virginia, down to Lynchburg, Virginia, by herself on the train. But by then she knew, she would actually go and she would sit with somebody and talk to them. And so she was very much into this, people are allies, people are friends, but what have we done? What has been going on, right? White people are evil, right? White people hate blacks. Everyone is there is a potential a virus vector and will kill you. We're turning so much against all other people, and it's great for the state. It's great for the state, because the only people we're going to believe as Biden and Fauci, right? They're our gods, and so we have to believe these people. We can't rely anymore on our neighbors and our friends and the people whom we really should be trusting.
Yeah, that's the world today. So New Hampshire's the way out. Quora is not the way in. And you're doing pretty well. It looks like you're doing real well now. With you say you have cancer, but you seem to be in health.
Yeah, thank you. So I had cancer surgery, when I was in Quora, and then they didn't get it, So they cut a large part of me out, and they They didn't get it all. So then they radiated me last year. And frankly, I haven't been, all that excited about going back and finding out.
Okay. Well, you've gone through a lot.
I'm kind of tired of the secondary effects. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
But I'm swimming. I actually here. Let me show you. Can you see the river?
Oh my, yeah, that's very nice.
This is a giant estuary. It's one of the largest estuaries in the United States. It fills up 7 feet each day with water. And I actually have this year. My goal was to swim 5 miles continuously in that estuary 3 times, and I did it. So I'm doing a lot of swimming, and definitely doing a lot of going out and doing a lot of activities and being with people, and good positive mental attitude. I also run kind of some personal growth stuff with the Libertarians. We're doing a little introductory class on Stoicism, which it's a virtual class because it's, people who are interested in are all spread out to the Free State. So we actually have 1 or 2 people who are not even in the Free State Project now, not yet porcupines who have joined us for that. But just 9 weeks about what Stoicism is, because we always have this debate, right? The question is, do you need government to govern you? All right. And the conservatives go, well, of course you need it. If you don't have religion governing you, if you don't have government governing you, who governs you? Right. Well, the Stoics say, well, you can govern yourself. Right. The Libertines say, well, we don't need any government, including myself. And so we usually get lumped in with the Libertines.
Right.
Right. The Libertines, they have a good reason to be libertarian because we're not going to bother them. But some of my favorite libertarians are extremely stoical, right? Extremely self-disciplined, and yes, this is my responsibility, and this is what I need to do, and here's how I become a better man. Here's how I advance my community and the people around me. So anyway, we're going into that as kind of it's not part of libertarianism, but it's a good complement of for some discussions and stuff. We have people who are in there who, may be interested in becoming more stoical, but they're also just people who are interested in philosophy in general or psychology in general.
Very good. I should confess to you that I'm a natural Epicurean, not a natural Stoic. And Epicureanism was the main rival to Stoicism.
Yes.
Yet Epicureans and the Stoics and the skeptics shared a common belief. Is that it was you do not indulge yourself. Is that you avoid complications and you avoid fear. I mean, you forswear fear. You do not allow yourself to be taken over by fear, because that is one of the main enemies. And all 3 of these philosophies, which were very common in the Hellenistic period among philosophers, all 3 of them had an interesting take on life. I like Epicureanism because it was a very evolutionary in thinking, and also simple life, which I admire in many ways. And also it was the much more anti-statist than Stoicism was.
Right.
Epicurus was a separatist. He believed that he's very much like the people who didn't really want to be part of, actually he's very free stater, is that you move to your commune, or you move to your friend's house, or you move to your community, and then you avoid these people.
Interesting. Wow. Well, we may have our next course all set out for us. Yeah, it's funny because if you look at what the state is doing to us, it is trying to gin up fear, right? They and their mainstream media cronies are all trying to make us fearful all the time. And you can see this when you're talking to people who are in that authoritarian mindset. They're just like, they can barely breathe. They're so fearful. If you remember, we're finishing Firefly now for Sci-Fi Fridays. Guess what our next science fiction will be?
You mean after Serenity?
After Serenity, yeah. We're gonna do another series.
Another series. Well, that's why I don't know. What other series would you do?
Dune, the sci-fi Channel miniseries on Dune was really good, and they're redoing Dune. But if you remember, the opening scene of Dune in the book and in the movie has to do with conquering fear. And they actually test the young Astrid, I think that's his name, for
Atreides?
What?
Atreides?
Atreides, yeah. They test him for whether he's an animal or a human, for whether he can withstand fear and pain and work and still be able to work through it. And so that's like this gigantic, that's like a main theme going through Dune. And if you look at what's going on with both the Free State Project, where we're going, look, there are dangers and stuff like that. Keep your head, make your own decisions, but don't panic, and don't start using violence against other people. Versus what's going on in the authoritarian states, where people are just panicking and freaking out and doing just the stupidest things, and it's all based on fear. I feel for them, and I'm just watching them, and they're a separate tribe, Good luck, guys.
Yeah, that's a real problem. Are you aware of the silver fox experiments and breeding program in the Soviet Union?
Like the 3 generations they
took.
It
wasn't very long. I think it was more than 3, but didn't take long before they got a tame animal. But the tame did not mean fearful.
Well, they bred the children who were the most aggressive and the least aggressive, and so they separated. And the most aggressive, you couldn't walk into that thing without the animals tossing themselves against the cage and tearing it apart and trying to get at your neck, right? And the tame ones were like, little kitty cats, and they would be sitting in your arms and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a fairly few generations that they were able to get that gigantic a difference in people. I was talking to someone the other day, I think you and I have talked about this, that the question around libertarianism isn't why there are more libertarians. The question is why there are any libertarians at all, right? Because our rulers have done quite a eugenics job of getting rid of liberty gene. The people who actually don't fear, the people who don't obey, the people who think for themselves, those people have been killed at a much higher proportion to the people who are just the docile sheep.
Okay, now you have to explain that. How do they do this? I haven't heard this explanation before.
Oh, well, so you disagree with the king, and they bring out the sword and take off your head.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a very simple thing. You will submit your wheat, otherwise we come and spear you. So I would suggest that we had a lot more rabble rousers before a higher proportion of rabble rousers before we had all this kind of calling of the herd into more docile domestic animals, right? If you think of rulers as being kind of shepherds, and we are their sheep, and they farm us, right? We labor for them and give them our product, and that's how they earn their living. They have gotten rid of our genes, and so how after 6,000 years are there still people like us going around? Because I can't imagine that I would have made it long, in those days. I would have had a spear stuck in me or something. I don't know. Well,
but libertarians do have, and we're talking here about the individualists who are, let me take a step back. In animals, especially mammals, there's fight or flight. Those are the 2 extremes. And there are some animals more prone to flight, and there are some animals more prone to fight. But both of those extremes are not what we want to domesticate an animal. What we want is in between, is they want something open to new experience and open to what they can learn from the situation and open to cooperation. And that's how we got dogs, and maybe how we got cats and a lot of other animals, but especially the dogs who may have helped us build civilization, at least help
Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, maybe. But the point being is that a civilized stance is not fight or flight, but it's to put away the fear that leads to fight or flight, but to actually stand your ground and see if there's something else available to do. And that's the origin of civilization in one sense. And the state on top of it, of course, is very much in the predatory realm, but also it depends on us, because if it were not for cooperators, people who learned not to flee and who learned not immediately to fight, but were open to new possibilities. That's the way forward. It's that middle ground. See, now, I've never believed that liberty was on an extreme. I've always believed that liberty was a middle ground between extremes.
Wow.
And you just have to find what the extremes are. And one of the psyops that nearly every statist gives us, just like every con man gives us a psyop, is to narrow down the realm of debate so you only see an extreme within a larger continuum. That's my view of liberty. It's always been my view of liberty, is that it's never been an extreme. I don't like the idea of an extreme, because extremists, well, for one thing, extremists aren't very reliable.
Well,
and I want reliable.
It's certainly extreme in that it's unusual.
Sure.
So, I mean, the question is, what's extreme? Well, if you have an infinite number of dimensions that you could put it on, one dimension would be a histogram of people in terms of believing in self autonomy. And then you have libertarianism as an extreme on that particular dimension. Now, there may be other dimensions that you want to talk about, but that's the one I'm talking about, because the people who challenge the king, the people who say, well, that's just a guy prancing about in a robe and a hat, that's not someone special. The guy who says, oh, that's not a guy, that's just a guy who craps in his pants, that person is in danger. As opposed,
but that person does usually learn how not to say certain things.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, one of the nice things about living in America is that we do have a tradition of free speech, no matter how much it has been curtailed now. Right.
Well, I thought I was within the bounds of Quora. I didn't get that many be nice. What is it? BNBR. Be nice, be respectful, because I was nice and respectful, and
you're far nicer than
off my head. They lopped off my head, right?
And that was not because you were not being nice and respectful. You were. I always watched what you were doing. You're far nicer and far more respectful than I am on Quora. Because when somebody gives pushback that's stupid, I'll tell them it's stupid. I won't say it's stupid. I'll give them all the reasons why it's stupid, and then I'll apply it quite strongly. Well, you're always much nicer than I am, but I'm still on Quora because I'm not dangerous, because I write in a different way. You are a marketer, and I'm not a marketer. I'm for the Gideon strategy. That's the only strategy that I can handle. And
tell me what the Gideon strategy is.
Well, are you familiar with the book of Judges in the Bible?
Not as much as I ought to be, I guess.
Well, Gideon was preparing an army, and he wanted to make a big army, and the Lord kept whittling it down. He found excuses to get rid of all the other people, and he ended up with a very small group of very dedicated and very powerful and very smart people, and they conquered. But first, you have to winnow out all the people who are going to help you. And so that's just my attitude. I'm, for instance, these podcasts, how I write in a way that most people hate, literally hate my style. I don't care. I don't care if they hate, because I'm writing for the 17-year-old that I was, who liked intelligent writing of a certain type.
Right.
And so I'm writing for that person. I'm not writing for the person next door. But but it turns out the person next door does actually like my stuff sometimes.
It might be that Quora has kept you around because they can't understand your writing.
Well, that's always a possibility, because I do actually write in a slightly different style. You're very clear, and I'm not unclear. It's just that I use bigger words, and I engage in a kind of rhetoric that I don't think is very common anymore. My favorite philosopher is George Santayana, and it's possible to read George Santayana and forget what he's saying if you get caught up in his rhythms. But he's also very clear. You just have to be of a certain mindset. And most people who are serviles cannot read what I consider philosophy. They cannot do it because they're taught anti-philosophy. They're taught propaganda, and they think in terms of cliche.
Yeah, my writing was always people complained because I did use more advanced words. It was longer, that type of thing. But I tried to take people down step by step and carefully take them through stuff. I was always excited when you wrote. I was like, oh right, Timo's got a new thing, and I would always share it. And I was surprised because the people who followed me, I would have thought that the people who followed me would also share my excitement with your writing. And that wasn't true.
No.
That wasn't true. I mean, there were some who did, but it really wasn't true. And I was going, well, that's interesting. So, even though you were like my favorite on Quora, the people for whom I was their favorite, they couldn't understand, or it wasn't transferable.
Right. And I've recognized this for a long time, and I'm at peace with it.
Well, if you really like winnowing, then you should be over here in the Free State Project, because this is a winnowing process. All the people who talk about freedom and stuff like that, but they won't actually move for freedom. They won't actually build freedom in the real world. They won't actually sweat for freedom. We're doing that. We're doing that.
Well, you're tempting me.
Yeah, we have we don't have. It's funny because Sorens, who wrote the original paper about the Free State Project, he was studying secessionist movements, and for his PhD, and I think that was at Yale. But he was kind of going, well, what about the libertarians? They've been doing this thing with politics and trying to convince people to be libertarian, and they've failed over and over again. Well, what can we learn from these secessionist movements? And he said, well, really, what you need a mass of libertarians. You need a set number of libertarians in one place. You need that core group. And so what if we have this movement where we bring all the libertarians together? Now, he put out some numbers as to what he thought it would take to get first 20,000 people to sign up and say, I'll move. And secondly, 20,000 people to actually move. It was so far off in his estimation of how hard it was for people to say, yeah, I believe so much in liberty that I will move to a new place and actually create it. And that when the time came, they actually followed through. So and a lot of that also was because people didn't really see. I mean, I think with this vaccine mandates and what they're doing to the kids, and there's a lot of people now who are seeing this and they're going, oh, okay, what you were telling me 20 years ago, I think I understand now what this could turn into. Because they don't. I mean, this is child's play to where I think we would be going if we don't actually have some sort of bastion of freedom. The hard part is that, like I said, they don't want to leave their friends and community. All other secessionist movements that he had studied were already set communities, like Mormons, and then they're besieged from the outside, and so they go, "Let's go, guys." And they get up as a community and they move over and resettle as a community. Libertarianism shows up randomly in the population. So you may have one libertarian in a family. So the libertarian can't even move with his family. The family thinks that he's crazy and insane, and they're telling him, "Oh, you're." When in fact, you move to the Free State and you find out you're the most sane person around. But they're going, oh geez, and I can't leave these people. This is my support structure and stuff like that. That's why I wrote that. They're not your fucking friends. They're not your fucking friends. They don't believe that you should be free, and they will undermine your freedom. And when it comes down to it, if you challenge the state, they're going to be very sad that you're in jail or maimed or killed, but you did disobey. It's too bad, but you did disobey. You're not going to get that reaction here.
Very good.
So we're actually trying to get these people to say, yeah, okay, I'll leave my community, my fake community, my false community, the community of cannibals who will eventually eat me, right? I live in a cannibal tribe. I'm not a cannibal. I'm trying to pretend I'm a cannibal. They're going to find out and they're going to eat me. You know, that's the problem that libertarians face. And move out of that to the non-cannibal tribe. We actually are forming the first non-cannibal tribe here. Now, what happens after we form this, whether we can actually be separatists, whether we go to a more federalist system, whether we actually see, you know, Texas exits and California and Vermont, and then we can slip out the back door, or if we actually do what the prior secessionists did was, oh my God, this is so oppressive, but over here we have this new island that we can mass migrate because we can actually pick up our communities, pick up the institutions that we've built, you know, pick up and actually go over en masse. We can actually, the next migration, if we have to actually migrate again, is going to be so much easier because we didn't have to do it as individuals coming to some place that we don't even know, and we don't have any ties, and we're you know, they're so scared. You know, of course, when they get here, we have people who get here and they're just like so relieved. They feel so happy that they're here and they're amongst their kind. But yeah, so I would hope that you actually come, Timo.
Well,
think about another great libertarian here, creating liberty in our lifetime and not subject to whatever the authoritarians have in mind for you when they finally find out where you live.
The nice thing about where I live right now, and it is a nice thing, is that I live in probably one of the freest counties in the state. We have the smallest amount of regulation on property, for instance, of any place in the state. And so there's a lot of, I mean, you can build a garage and they don't have to have any permits. I mean, there's just a lot of things you can do that if I moved 5 miles down the road, it would cost me $13,000 to the state before I could build a garage. I mean, it's amazing what power some counties do in the various states.
Right.
It's an astounding thing. And a lot of that is because, I hate to say it, but a lot of, in our state, Microsoft millionaires moved to the beach for their summer homes, and they brought their thinking with them. And so that's an issue. You mentioned Californication earlier. We didn't use the term, but that's when somebody goes to a freer place to get away from the tyranny of where they live, and then they start reintroducing tyranny because that's just what you got to do. These people seem crazy to me. They're not very thoughtful. They're kind of stupid, and it's unfortunate that it happens, but it happens over and over again. I want to change the subject just a little bit, because right behind you, and for the people listening or watching on video, they can see that there are two gonfalons behind you, two flags that are draped over a rod, and I believe they must have meaning.
Yeah, right. Well, those are the symbols I used to write under for libertarianism on Quora. Those are my, in my profiles on Facebook and wherever I am. I don't use my face. I use that. Yeah, those are my life symbols. I did them in a kind of a very advanced master's level personal growth 6-month program where you were supposed to kind of decide what's your life about. What's important to your life, and then create a symbol for it. And so those are my symbols for my life. It starts with the base of peace, both personal peace. And so how can I be more peaceful in myself and also peace amongst other people? But that peace that's where I'm always trying to get to, is greater peace internally and greater peace with my fellow man. And then there's love on top of that, kind of the mature love, the respect, the tolerance, the love of each person as they come, right? The acceptance of the person as they are. And, and I've struggled with this, especially with authoritarians. And I actually experienced this on that schooner, where I was just like watching these people, and I could actually appreciate them because they weren't actually threatening me, because I'm in a separatist Free State Project thing. They're in this authoritarian state going towards authoritarianism. God bless them. but I can actually accept them for how they show up and, wish them well. And then the last one is the voluntarist symbol, that all interactions should be voluntary. That's so libertarianism. There's a part that is that thinks about it as voluntarist. But if I want to get into a contract with a number of other people and we form something that someone else might call a state, it's a voluntary state. I enter it voluntarily and I may leave it voluntarily. So the voluntarist sign sits on top of everything because you need that voluntarism in order to have love. Without voluntarism, love is rape. If you think of what's love, coerced love, the state love, come on. So you need that voluntarism for love, and you need it for peace, because a coerced peace is just a penal colony. You're guarded and told what to do, and yes, we have peace. It's kind of a law and order type of thing of the conservatives. But if you actually have voluntary peace, where people are interacting voluntarily and in a peaceful way, that's true peace. So that's why that V sign goes all the way through and takes all the colors through it, if you see. And you can tell that I think way too much about these things.
That's fine with me. The V is a triangle with gold on one side and black on the other. It's a familiar triangle to people who are used to anarcho-capitalism of some sorts. It's often used, right?
Right, yeah. So this is a gold and black of anarcho-capitalism. They're doing a stylized handshake here.
Okay, that's what that is. I was wondering what that was.
So this is a kind of a stylized handshake. And then the V for voluntarism can be seen there. And that's what's sinking through and collecting all the colors underneath.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, thanks for chatting with me, Dennis.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for connecting up. I really do miss my friends at Quora. We had such a great community of almost 100 libertarians. And I loved going, and it was such a great bridge for me. I went there when I kind of given up on personal growth as being this way of people learning about each other and accepting each other, respecting each other. I thought that was a backdoor way into libertarianism. And then I watched them turn into like these hate, was it 5-minute hate talks in 1984? These personal growth workshops were turned into 5-minute hate spiels about Trump and the Republicans. And I go, whoa. We're supposed to be accepting. We're supposed to be understanding, and I was just so upset about it. And so that's why I went to Quora. I went to Quora because I kind of gave up on that as being the path towards freedom. And I thought, okay, what if I could actually really enunciate this beauty that I see, where people respect one another, the ethic of libertarianism. It's a beautiful thing. That if we can actually achieve this society, how fantastic is, can I communicate this? And so, I learned how to write, and I did a pretty good job. But I just couldn't stay on that. I think if they hadn't shadow banned me, if I still was effective there, I probably still would be doing it because I was doing it so well. But I couldn't find another outlet that put me in touch with as many open and curious people, intellectual people. Quora was great because there was a group of people who weren't just, Facebook is such a cesspool. I was talking to this guy today, and he's so closed-minded. He's not open at all to exploring things. And he's just yelling out inanities and platitudes. So it's just so hard to talk to somebody like that. Whereas Quora, people were more intellectual. They go, okay, explain this to me a little bit more. Okay, why don't you say this? And it was really an open dialogue, which I think we do extremely well. if the person has any openness in their brain, few people do. So I've kind of given up on that. I hope more people fall into it. I've laid my traps on Quora. I hope they catch it and they go, oh, that's interesting. But I'm trying to collect and save those people who really are liberty oriented from bad things that are going to happen. I'm trying, we're setting up something here. We want the people to come and help us build one small free society on this earth. As a prototype, it's a proof of concept. It's also a safe haven. So I hope more people come out. And I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff in real life for these guys. I mean, I love doing it. It's so much fun. And it's so nice, having been, so you're 1980, I was 81. But so I'm 40 years now. I'm 40 years now libertarian. And most of that time has been extraordinarily frustrating without any progress. And I'm seeing progress all over the place here. Even as you guys in your authoritarian states are seeing, the destruction, the reversal of progress, all over. I'm seeing progress all over here. And so, I'm not experiencing the same world that you're experiencing. Escape the cannibals. Come to the free state. Come on, Timo.
Good. Thank you very much.
Well, whether or not I actually go to the Free State, even to visit, is up in the air. But I don't want to be burned by the cannibals. My matches, the LocoFoco match, lights brush fires in the mind to encourage you to think about freedom in a voluntary society. You can find this podcast at LocoFoco.net, and I'm at Workman.com. That's Workman with an I, not an O. That's the middle name, Timothy Workman Virkola. And you can find me on various other places. At Workman, for instance. That's Workman with an I, not an O, on several social media services. Twitter, Facebook, Gab. If you want to hear more of Dennis Pratt and me talking, you can go to LocoFoco.locals.com, where I will soon put up extra short videos and audios